LawzMarketplace.com, the site where the tribes unite. Check out fresh Israelite apparel for both men and women, with new items added frequently. Don't forget to join the marketplace so you can promote your own products and services. Kwam Yasha'Allah. Shalom, family. The soul food topic on tonight is Christ's commandments. Christ's commandments. So I did a topic like this a little while back, but it's never a bad thing to have a refresher. So many in the Christian church believe that the teachings of the law of the Mosaic law are done away with. Even though the moral and the civic law and the things that pertain to righteousness outside of the law of animal sacrifice, they believe in their mind and is done away with. That Christ has come and just eradicated all sense of law and righteousness, but that is not the case. We understand that the Ten Commandments, as well as all the other precepts, are still intact. That Christ only came to fulfill the law of animal sacrifice, okay, according to the book of Hebrews and other places within the New Testament. And so I just wanted to take this time to go over the Ten Commandments and show evidence where these things were taught and affirmed by Christ in the New Testament, that he didn't do away with them, he didn't cast them aside, but that these things are still intact. So we will start with number one, the first commandment, which is to have no other gods before the Most High Yahweh. So in that, Gail, I'll have you go to the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verses 35 through 40, and see what Yahawashi had to say about the keeping of the commandments. Okay? Because of course, we wouldn't want it to be taught that you can have other gods before the Most High. But again, Christianity will tell us that the laws are done away with, so we have to get understanding and clarity. Before you read Matthew, I'm going to read a passage in Isaiah. So I'm going to go first to Isaiah chapter 42, verse 21. So you go ahead and grab Matthew, and I'll have you read that next.
What was the scripture?
Matthew 22, 35 through 40. But I'm going to read Isaiah 42 and 21. And it reads, Yahweh is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. Okay? Now, Christianity is a religion of lawlessness. They do not magnify the law. They do not make it honorable. But rather, they have crumbled it up like a useless piece of scrap paper and tossed it over their shoulder. That's what they have done with the law of God, the law of righteousness. But the Most High said that he will make his law, he will magnify the law and make it honorable. And he did that by way of his son, Yahawashi. That he came and taught the people how to, in righteousness, truly keep the law. And that through his death and the fulfilling of the law of animal sacrifice, they can find remission of their sins. Okay? All right, so you can go ahead and read Matthew 22, 35 through 40.
Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Yahawashi said unto him, Thou shalt love the Yahweh thy King with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
So all the Mosaic law and the added teachings of the prophets can be summed up in these two precepts that Yahawashi gave unto that lawyer. And that the first great commandment is to love the Most High God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and to love our neighbor as yourself. So that first commandment, right, which is to have no other God before him, the same commandment that was given unto the children of Israel by way of Moses on Mount Sinai, that's still intact. That's still in place. Why? Again, because we read in Isaiah 42 and 21 that he shall magnify the law and make it honorable. So when the lawyer trying to tempt him asked him, what's the great commandment? He didn't say, well, I think maybe we should change it, or, I kind of feel I have a philosophy concerning the commandments. How about we do this? And no, he didn't do that. But he magnified the law. He took him back to Moses and told him what Moses said and made the law honorable. Okay? Let's move on. The second commandment would be to make no graven images, to bow down and to worship them in heaven or on earth or in the sea. Okay? Again, I have you go to the book of John, chapter 4, verse 5. Okay? The book of John, chapter 4, verse 5. Not only 5, but verses 20 through 23. So chapter 4, 5, 20 through 23.
Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph.
So let's keep this in mind. So this is where Yahawashi and his disciples, this is where they were, okay? They were a city in Samaria, which is called Sychar, okay? Read.
Verse 20 through 23. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship. Yahawashi saith unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeketh such to worship him.
So when the Most High God desires his people to worship him in spirit and in truth, that is without the use of idols, without the use of a graven image. Okay, to understand that he is the great invisible God. He is omnipresent. He is omnipotent. Okay, and he does not dwell in a temple made of hands. Okay, that he dwells in the heavens of the heavens. Okay, he is the Most High God. And this is the one example, if you will, within the Gospels to where you find, I guess, idol worship. Not exactly, but this woman of Samaria, who's of the tribes of Israel, saying, look, we've been told that in Jerusalem is a place you should worship. And that is in the scripture, that you ought to go to Jerusalem and worship where the house of God stood. Okay? But she said that we, going back, verse 20, our fathers worship in this mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship. So men ought to worship in Jerusalem, but our fathers in the days of old worship here, so we're going to continue to worship here. Okay? We're going to hold it right there. And I'm going to grab Genesis 33, 18 through 20. Remember what it said there in verse 5 of chapter 4 of John, where he says they were in a city in Samaria called Sychar. All right, and they cited it as a place where Jacob, what did it say? A parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. So we're going to go to Genesis and read about that. Genesis chapter 33, verses 18 and 20. Okay. And it reads, And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padanaram and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it Elel Ohi Israel, something like that. Okay, so there was an altar that Jacob set up, and this woman of Samaria, who is of the tribes of Israel, is saying, hey, well, in ancient times, our fathers did worship here. They gave offering and sacrifices unto God here. but you say that in Jerusalem is where we should go and worship. I think this is just speculation, but I think what may have began to happen, because we understand that the Samaritans, who are part of the northern kingdom, or the residue of the northern kingdom that were left after the Assyrian captivity, that they occupied these lands. Remember, there were some heathens from Assyria who were displaced and placed in the lands of Samaria, and they began to go after other gods. And that probably this altar that was a righteous monument unto the Most High God, which was an altar that was made by Jacob, perhaps had become defiled and polluted with idols. It perhaps had become a pagan site for pagan and idol worship. Okay? So this woman is contesting that this place has historic precedent even over the temple in Jerusalem. So I prefer this area. Even though perhaps it was a defiled site, they said, look, she's saying, look, this is what we've been accustomed to worshiping at. I'm going to continue to be here, even though y'all say we should go to Jerusalem. But what does Yahawashi say? So go back to chapter 4 and read 21 down. Yeah.
For our fathers worshipped
21 down.
Oh. Yahawashi saith unto her, whom believe
Start over. It's all right.
Yahawashi saith unto her, woman, believe me, the hour cometh when ye shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Ye worship ye know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews.
Hold it right there. Just hold it right there. Now I'm going to go to the book of Deuteronomy and read chapter 27, verses 4 through 6, and then 8 through 15. We'll bring out a couple passages to maybe give a little clarity to this interaction between the woman of Samaria and Christ. So Deuteronomy chapter 27, verses 4 through 6, and then 8 through 15. It reads, therefore it shall be when ye be gone over Jordan, that ye shall set up these stones, which I command you this day, and Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaster them with plaster. 5. And there shalt thou build an altar unto Yahweh thy God, an altar of stones. Thou shalt not lift up any iron tool upon them. 6. Thou shalt build the altar of Yahweh thy God of whole stones, and thou shalt offer burnt offerings thereon unto Yahweh thy God. Jumping to verse 8 to 15. And thou shalt write upon the stones all the words of this law very plainly. And Moses and the priests the Levites spake unto all Israel, saying, take heed and hearken, O Israel, this day thou art become the people of Yahweh thy God. Thou shalt therefore obey the voice of Yahweh thy God, and do his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day. And Moses charged the people the same day, saying, 12, These shall stand upon Mount Gerizim to bless the people. When ye are come over Jordan, Simeon and Levi and Judah and Issachar and Joseph and Benjamin. 13. I'm reading to 15, okay? And these shall stand upon Mount Ebal to curse. Reuben, Gad, Asher, Zebulun, Dan, and Naphtali. So what we have to understand is during this time here in Deuteronomy, that when the children of Israel were wandering through the wilderness, that there was a decree to make an altar in betwixt these two mountains, Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. And these places happen to reside in the land of Samaria. Okay? If I'm not mistaken from what I picked up, that it was near Sychar, the original site where Jacob bought the parcel of land and gave it to Joseph. That near that site, there were these two mountains, and in between there was to be another monument made for the children of Israel unto the Most High God. And that half the tribes would stand on one mountain, the other tribes would stand on another mountain and declare these things, okay? Verse 14. And the Levites shall speak and say unto all the men of Israel with a loud voice, Cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten image, an abomination unto Yahweh, the work of the hands of the craftsman, putteth it in a secret place. And all the people shall answer and say, Amen. So like I said, just speculating, it could be that around this site, that original site in Sychar, could have been given unto idol worship. Okay, and so that's why Christ is saying, look, neither here in Samaria or in Jerusalem is that what the Most High desires. But he wants those that worship in spirit and in truth. Now remember, he went ahead and told her all of her past shortcomings and all the men she done been with. So he was very aware if there were any idol practices that her or her people were partaking in. Okay? He was able to read minds. He was able to, understand these things. So he's telling her, look, don't concern yourself because you know not what you worship. That's almost as to say, you're worshiping these false idols in connection with your ancient ancestor. I'll give you an example. I believe it's in the book of Numbers, and then connecting that with Chronicles in the time of Josiah, when the children of Israel in the wilderness began to murmur against the Most High God. He said that he sent fiery serpents against them to smite them, and a lot of them died. When the serpents bit them, they dropped dead. Okay? And in order to heal them so that they would not get bit by these serpents and die, the Most High commanded Moses to make a brazen serpent upon a rod or a staff and to place this before the people, that whoever looked upon this brazen serpent and rod figure, that they would be healed. They would be made whole and protected. They would have immunity from the snake bite. Okay? But over the course of time, this holy relic, right? This holy instrument, throughout the course of time, became a symbol of pagan worship. So much so that during the time of Josiah, when he began to do his cleansing of the land, he destroyed this brazen serpent and rod, which was called Nehushtan. He took it and destroyed it because this holy relic, the people began to bow down and worship. So that's why it causes me to believe that this altar, perhaps, that was originally given by Jacob, or originally made by Jacob in near Sychar, perhaps was venerated and admired so much that people began to put more on the altar than they did on the Most High God. And that's why Christ is saying, look, don't concern yourself with either Samaria or Jerusalem, because you don't know what you're worshiping. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. We know, we understand, but I'm telling you right now that the Most High God is not even concerned with what place. He wants true worshipers who aren't going to bow down to graven images, because now in Deuteronomy, we're seeing that the tribes are standing upon Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, which is near the area that the altar of Jacob was built. And the command was, any who bows down to graven images, they shall be cursed. Even if he hides them in a secret place, even if he, tries to cover them up and discloses them near or under or around Jacob's altar. You are still cursed. You are still cursed. Let me grab one more precept concerning this. Let's go to Hosea chapter 8, verses 4 through 6. I'll read it. Hosea chapter 8, verses 4 through 6. And it reads, they have set up kings, but not by me. They have made princes, and I knew it not. Of their silver and their gold have they made them idols, that they may be cut off. Verse 5, thy calf, O Samaria. Now remember, this is the place that Christ entered through. He entered through the cities of Samaria to get to his destination in the northern part of Israel in Galilee. And he encountered this woman in Samaria. Okay? Thy calf. What calf is he talking about? Is this just talking about a calf that you'll dress and eat later? No. This is talking about the calf, which was the provocation against the Most High God that Jeroboam set up in Dan and in Bethel, if you read in the book of the Kings. He set this up and it became a stumbling block. King Jeroboam, son of Nebat, he set up this calf and caused the northern kingdom and the land of Samaria to go off into idol worship. All right, so verse 5, thy calf, O Samaria, hath cast thee off. mine anger is kindled against them. How long will it be ere they attain to any innocency? I can never say that word.
Innocency.
Thank you. Innocence.
Innocence.
I'm not even going to try it. But the point is, they trusted in these calves. They trusted in these idols. And now violence and calamity has befallen them. And he's saying, why don't you look for your calf to save you? Oh, your calf has deserted you. Remember, when Jeroboam set up these golden calves in Dan and in Bethel, he said, behold, O Israel, these are the gods that brought thee up from the land of Egypt. Oh, if this is your God, why ain't he saving you in the time of your calamity? Ain't you crying out? Ain't you cutting your flesh? Ain't you doing all these wicked pagan practices? Why ain't your God helping you out? Maybe he's asleep. Maybe he's away on vacation. Okay? He said, how long will it be ere or before they attain to innocency? Did I say it right? All right, thank you. Innocency. How long before you start to put away these idols and do the right thing? Verse 6, for from Israel was it also. The workman made it. Therefore it is not God, but the calf of Samaria shall be broken in pieces. Okay? So I say all that to say that we're seeing here that the graven image is not what the Most High God ordained. And Christ himself did not affirm that or give place to graven images, but that you ought to worship the Most High God in spirit and in truth. Not with the likes of a graven image or any idol, but in spirit and in truth. Let's move on to the third commandment, which is not to take the name of the Most High God in vain. Yella, I have you go to Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. The book of Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37.
Okay. Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. Again, you have heard that it hath been said by them of old time, thou shalt not forswear thyself, but shalt perform unto Yahweh thine oaths. But I say unto you, swear not at all, neither by heaven, for it is Yahweh's throne, nor by the earth, for it is his footstool, neither by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Neither shalt thou swear by thy head, because thou canst not make one hair white or black. Verse 37, but let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. For whatsoever is more than these cometh of evil.
So in order to refrain from speaking out of turn and making a vow or making an oath before the Most High God and taking his name to seal it, Christ is saying, if you try to do any of that, that's evil. Let your communication be yea, yea, nay, nay. If you're going to do it, do it. If you're not, then you're not. Don't say, I swear to God, or anything like that, or anything in that manner to profane or take his name in vain, the Most High God's name in vain. Okay? From there, same book, different chapter, chapter 12 of Matthew, verses 31 and 32. Can you read that for me, please? Matthew chapter 12, verses 31 and 32. Because the commandment of Moses was not to take the name of the Most High God in vain. And so we're looking to see how Christ dealt with these issues, if he affirmed them or if he said they were done away with. Read.
Matthew chapter 12, verses 31 and 32. Wherefore I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men.
So blasphemy is not a good thing. Blasphemy is sin before the Most High God. And when you took the name of the Most High God in vain, that was considered blasphemy. Okay? So he's saying that sin and blasphemy can be forgiven, but there's one caveat. Read on.
But the blasphemy against the Holy Ghost shall not be forgiven unto men. And whosoever speaketh a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever speaketh against the Holy Ghost, it shall not be forgiven him, neither in this world, neither in the world to come.
Okay, so taking the name of the Most High God in vain is not something that Christ was okay with. He did not do away with that. But you had to make your communication yea or nay. Don't forswear. Don't make your oath. Be done with that in order to not run the risk of blaspheming. But he's saying, if you do blaspheme, you can't ask for forgiveness. But if you blaspheme the Holy Ghost, it's a wrap for you, dog. It's a wrap. Take not the name of the Most High God in vain. Be very careful in what you say. Watch yourself. Watch your tongue. Okay? Watch your tongue. The fourth commandment, all right, which is to keep the Sabbath day holy and profane it not. All right, let's go to the book of Luke, chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. The book of Luke, chapter 4, verses 15, 16, 31, and 44. I'll say it again. The book of Luke, chapter 4, verses 15 and 16, 31 and 44.
Okay. Luke chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. And he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read.
Hold it right there. So again, the fourth commandment is to keep the Sabbath day holy. Right? So reading again, verse 15, and he taught in their synagogues, being glorified of all. 16, and he came to Jerusalem. So we're talking about Christ, right? This is his example, where he had been brought up. So this is what he did since his youth. So he came to this particular synagogue, him and his family, and he was taught here, okay? He worshiped here. And his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up for to read. So he read from time to time on every Sabbath day when he attended the synagogue. This was his custom. He kept the Sabbath day and kept it holy. He observed the day of the Most High. Okay? Verse 31 and 44 as well.
And came down to Capernaum, a city of Galilee, and taught them on the Sabbath days.
What's that last word there?
And taught them on the Sabbath days.
Days, plural. So we just read here in verse 16 of the chapter that he made a custom of going to his family, hometown synagogue every Sabbath day, keeping it holy by attending the synagogue, reading, and being taught. Okay? Then when he came of age, he went into Capernaum and taught them the scriptures, taught them with understanding every Sabbath day. So he took the custom of his youth and continued it into his adulthood. He didn't say, no, I came on the scene, the Sabbath is done away with, you ain't got to keep it. You can keep the Sabbath anytime you want to, or if you don't want to, that's all good too. No, he kept the Sabbath from his youth up. And when he became a grown man, he taught others on the Sabbath days, meaning every Sabbath he would go and teach. This was his custom. This is what he would do. All right, verse 44.
And he preached in the synagogues of Galilee.
And he preached in the synagogues of Galilee. So based off of verse 16 and verse 31, right? And came down to Capernaum, a city in Galilee. And then now 44, he preached in the synagogues of Galilee. We can only, what's the word I'm looking for? We can only deduce from this information that he had to have been teaching in these other synagogues outside of Capernaum in the area of Galilee on the Sabbath as well. So he made it his business to teach on the Sabbath in these synagogues. Why? Because that's probably where his greatest audience would be. Just like black folks today in America, where can you find an audience of individuals who are at least somewhat spiritually minded? Sunday morning at Sunday service. It'd be the same if he waited outside of Enon Baptist Church or whatever Baptist, AME Baptist Church, and waited for the congregants to come out and began to teach them. Why? Because that's where they would be. So he understood to keep the Sabbath day, but then this is also where my people are, and this is the opportunity for me to teach them. To go back to what it says in Isaiah 42 and 21, that he shall magnify the law and make it honorable. Not to dilute it, not to, dismember it, disassemble it, but to magnify it and to make it honorable. Okay? From there, let's go to Luke chapter 6, verses 6 through 9. Luke chapter 6, verses 6 through 9. We're almost done.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
And it came to pass also on another Sabbath.
Salakia. So we're already reading in the book of Luke that he went into his hometown synagogue and taught on the Sabbath day as it was his custom. Then he went into Capernaum, a city in Galilee, and taught on the Sabbath days. And then he went into the synagogues throughout all of Galilee and taught in other synagogues on the Sabbaths. Now we're getting here in chapter 6 and said on another Sabbath, he's going to do something else. Go ahead and read.
And it came to pass also on another Sabbath that he entered into the synagogue and taught. And there was a man whose right hand was withered. Okay, so we read in chapter 4 that on the Sabbath day was his chief day to teach and to magnify the law and to make it honorable. Because the command was given to Malachi that the priest might teach, that knowledge might come from his mouth and teach the people. So what better time to teach than on the Sabbath day? And what better way to teach and be a living example than to observe the Sabbath and teach people the precepts of God on the Sabbath day in a synagogue? He was killing 2-3 birds with one stone. Okay? And now you're getting to an example here where he heals and does that which is righteous. Now Christians will take it and say, well, he did work on the Sabbath. So, we can break the Sabbath. It's okay. That's a lie. He was a living example of what it meant to magnify the law and to make it honorable. He taught on the Sabbath day. But read on. 7?
Yeah.
And the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an occasion against him. So he was a Sabbath keeper. The Pharisees could attest to that Christ was a Sabbath keeper. But they found that some of his behavior and his conduct was contrary to the teaching of the elders. Not the teachings of the law, but the teachings of the elders that he rebuked, because sometimes the teachings of the elders cause them to break the commandments of God. You follow after the teachings of men to break the commandments of God. So these men were a little they were uneasy with witnessing Christ doing some of his things because it was against what they grew up learning from the elders. The elders taught, hey, you should do this and do that because I think, Moses said to do this, but if we do this, then this, what I'm saying? So they were taught all of these different added precepts that were not in the law, the precepts of men. They were added in there. Some of them were Talmudic, perhaps. Okay? And this is what they were groomed in. Most of it was good because Christ affirmed it in Matthew chapter 23. But they held their elders in high regard. These were men they revered. And now Christ is coming, a very young man, by the way, who's coming and poo-pooing the teachings and the instructions of the elders. And it made the Pharisees upset that you are trampling upon the teachings of the elders. So they were looking to see, because Christ is obviously a Sabbath keeper. Okay, he's not working. He doesn't go out and do carpentry projects on the Sabbath. He's not doing any of that. But I want to see if I can catch him doing anything. Kind of like the men who were hating on Daniel, right? And they made the king declare a decree that anybody who prays
to any god besides the king or whatever, that they would be tossed in jail. The Pharisees were kind of like them. They were hating on Christ, so they were looking for any occasion to have him be ridiculed, to have him to be ostracized, cast out, and to ultimately be, killed, destroyed. Read.
Verse 8. But he knew their thoughts, and said to the man which had the withered hand, Rise up and stand forth in the midst. And he arose and stood forth. Then said Yahawashi unto them, I will ask you one thing. Is it lawful on the Sabbath days to do good or to do evil?
Salakia, so he asked them a question plainly. Is it lawful to do good on the Sabbath day or to do evil? You're the Pharisees. You're the law experts. I want to know from you. Is it lawful? And they knew that this question was in regard to this potential healing. But they didn't know how to answer it. Okay? So we know that because he said he could read their thoughts. They didn't openly say, let's catch him in something. They thought it. And they were peeking behind the crowds and looking to see what he was going to do. They were standing in the cut and watching. Intent on seeing, what is he going to do? I wonder what he's going to do. He read their thoughts and asked them a question. Is it lawful to do good or evil? Well, if we say to do evil, then he'll condemn us. But if we say it's lawful to do good, then he's going to say healing is a good thing. I don't know. I'm unsure. So let me just be quiet. Read.
To save life or to destroy it.
Okay. So, was that it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So what Christ was saying is that obviously to do good is what the Sabbath is all about. And this healing that Christ went to perform was a good deed. A very good deed. Because of the hardness of their heart, the Pharisees that is, they found fault in him performing a miracle and making this man who has a withered hand, making it whole. He is performing a righteous, miraculous healing on the Sabbath day, and these men found fault. But he did that which was good. And they knew it, that's why they couldn't answer him anything. They didn't say anything because they knew. Okay? So you always will have Christians try to use examples like this to try to say, you see, Christ, he kept the Sabbath day. And he taught every Sabbath. He went into the synagogues all throughout Galilee and he taught on the Sabbath day to magnify the law and to make it honorable. And then he demonstrated before the Pharisees. I'm going to make his law honorable. Is it good to do is it lawful to do that which is good or evil on the Sabbath day? Because I came to make it honorable. Which one? Well, I guess make it good. Then I'm going to do that which is good. I'm not going to let this man go another day with a withered hand. I'm going to do that which is good on the Sabbath day, that I might please the Heavenly Father. Okay? All right, the fifth commandment is to honor thy mother and father, that the days may be long upon the earth, which is the fifth commandment, the last one for tonight, and then we'll finish the rest another day. But Gail, I'll have you go to Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13. Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13.
Okay. Mark chapter 7, verses 9 through 13. And he said unto them, Full well ye reject the commandment of Yahweh, that ye may keep your own tradition.
So this kind of goes back to what I was saying, and that the Pharisees, they highly regarded and esteemed the teachings of the elders, those that came before them, those that they were under their tutelage, in these different areas of study, you know what I'm saying, where the law was concerned. you had these men that taught them these things, and they held on to it. They held on to it. Okay? But the problem was some of these things caused them to be blinded to the true spirit of righteousness where the law was concerned. They were so hung up on trying to keep to the letter the teachings of the elders that they forsook the spirit of the commandment given from Moses. Read.
Verse 10. For Moses said, honor thy father and thy mother, and whoso curseth father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is Corban, that is to say, a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, he shall be free.
Shalakia. So Christ is saying, look, I have a problem with y'all because you say you keep the commandments, but by following after the teachings of your elders, you break the commandments. Because Moses said to honor thy mother and father. When you honor your mother and father, there's no expiration date on that. Sirach says, how can you repay your mother and father for all they've done for you? Paraphrasing. There's no way you can begin to repay them. So how in the world can you devise some man-made commandment which supersedes the law that Moses gave, that I can give you a gift, take this gift, do as you wish, and then don't contact me for any more financial aid? Right? Son, daughter, have come into their own. They're adults. They're doing well for themselves, and their parents are in need. Here's your lump sum. Don't call me anymore. How is that honoring your parents? How is that walking in the spirit of Moses? How is that keeping the commandments of God? Full well you know when you keep after the commandments of the elders, you transgress the commandments of God. Because when you do this, it satisfies your carnal desire, but it does not fulfill the commandment of love and honor towards your parents. It does not. You don't give them a lump sum and say, leave me alone. Don't call me no more. The honor towards your mother and father is perpetual to the day you pass away. Okay? You know full well when you do these things and you follow after the ways of your elders, you break the commandments of God. So here he's affirming you need to truly honor your mother and your father, not with this Corban crap. The Most High God is not pleased with that. Because you know what honoring your mother and father from your youth up is supposed to teach you, what it's supposed to engender in you? It's supposed to show reverence to the Most High God. Before you can come of age and come to understand what it means to serve the Most High God and to provide what He requires, you got to do that first with your mother and father from the days of your youth. So if this is the way you treat your mother and father, then this is the way you'll treat the Most High God. You'll give Him that Cain offering. Give Him of the inferior. Give Him of the ground. And then get mad when someone else who gives the Most High God a more honorable sacrifice, then you want to be mad and have a problem with that. So a lot of these Pharisees were hypocrites and they wanted to give that Cain type offering. If this is the way you go about keeping the commandments, this is the way you honor your mother and father, then you know you're not going to put that type of effort into worshiping the Most High God. Not with sincerity and truth, but according to the doctrines of men. Okay?
Verse 12 and 13.
Yep.
And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother.
Salakia. So this has become a decree that you added into the law of Moses and I guess in some way ratified the commandment. So your elders and your continued teachings of this particular precept have ratified or reformed the original commandment which said to honor your mother and father, which is a perpetual commandment for children unto their parents. But you say if you give a gift that exonerates you from any responsibility to honor your mother and father, how in the world is that possible? How is that the will of God? So if I give you $50,000 when I turn 30 years old, you better not call me when I'm 45 asking for some more money. That's wicked. That's not the will of God. But that's what these men were doing. Verse 12, read it one more time.
And ye suffer him no more to do aught for his father or his mother.
So they would teach the people, look, if you give a Corban a gift and say, hey, this is with this, take what profit you will of me, and you say you suffer him not to do aught for his mother or father, so that's good. That's sufficient. You ain't got to do no more. Really? Can we really think about that for a moment? Especially in this day and age where, as the scriptures say, that they shall be disobedient unto parents. Your mother and father are in need, whether they're still married or separated. Nevertheless, they're still your parents. Just because they got a divorce, that don't mean they're not your parents. That's because your father, lived a life of crime and was in and out of jail. That don't mean he's not your father. Just because your mom, lived a whorish lifestyle and she was on drugs, that don't mean she's still not your mother. Here, take this and leave me alone. Some people will justify themselves with that. My mom was never a good mom. She used to do drugs and bring men in and out of my house, and I was traumatized. So take this and leave me alone. That's not in the commandment of God. It doesn't say here that the parents were righteous and honorable. It just said that they were their mother and father. And your elders teach men, right, that it's okay if you give them a gift, send them on their way, and you are free before the eyes of God of having to care for your mother and father anymore. Because you washed your hands of them. You know how many children say that nowadays? Wash my hands of you. I'm done with you. I'm done with you, Ma. I'm done with you, Dad. Don't talk to me. Don't call me no more. I wash my hands of you. Ye full well break the commandments of God by your traditions. And you justify yourself and give yourself a clean conscience. I did the best I can. I go back to the scripture in Sirach. What can you do to repay your mother and your father for all they've done for you, to paraphrase? How can you begin to repay them? How can you wash your hands of them? I'm not going to say that dealing with your mother and father, especially if they're not honorable, righteous men and women, that it can't be hard, that it can't be difficult. But how can you wash your hands totally of them? You might have to be distant for a little bit. You might have to tell them no. But how can you wash your hands and say, you suffer me not to do any aught for them. I don't have to do nothing more for you now. I've done enough. I wrote you a check. Take that and leave me alone. Don't you call me. I'm living my best life. I can't have you messing it up. I got my wife and kids. I got my home and my car, my career. Ma, don't call me no more because you used to not take care of me and you were struggling on drugs and I had to go from auntie house to my friend's house and I lived a bad childhood. So here, take this and get out my face. How is that honorable? How is that the keeping of the commandments? Dad, you was a deadbeat. You was never there for me. You ain't come to my baseball games. But Christ came to magnify the law and to make it honorable. Malachi also says that in the coming of John, of that prophet Elisha, and Christ as well, that he would turn the heart of the Father to the Son. The heart of the Son into the Father. That's repairing the breaches. That's magnifying the law and making it honorable. That's bringing out this fifth commandment and saying, what is y'all doing? That's not honoring your mother and father. You throw them a couple pennies and say, leave me alone. And then you make yourself righteous and say, well, I did the best I can. Can't nobody judge me. I was a good son. Because I know people who would have did them worse. No. But he came to magnify the law and to make it honorable. So in conclusion, we see that Christ taught to keep the commandment. You had a point you want to make?
Didn't finish 13.
Okay, then go ahead and finish 13.
Making the word of Yahweh of none effect through your traditions, which ye have delivered, and many such like things do ye. So it wasn't just with the honoring of your mother and father, it was other elements of the law that you trampled down, and made light of, and made of none effect, so that you can keep the teaching of these elders of that you hold in such high esteem. That you hold in such high esteem. Did you have a point you want to make, or that was it? Okay, so in conclusion, we see Christ kept the commandments, so we must keep the commandments.